Hi everyone and welcome back to the podcast, the place to relax, learn English and enjoy inspiring stories. In today's special episode, we're sharing a beautiful story called The Meaningful Job. This is a story about Mia, a young girl who volunteers at a food bank and discovers something life-changing. Through her journey, you'll learn new English phrases, hear real-life conversations, and get a powerful message about kindness, courage, and purpose. This story is great for practicing listening, shadowing, and learning how English is used in daily life. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's listen together.
It was a cold Saturday morning when Mia decided to do something different. Instead of sleeping in or going to the mall with friends, she signed up to volunteer at the local food bank. She didn't know what to expect. When she arrived, the building looked plain and quiet from the outside. But inside, it was full of life. People were packing boxes, sorting cans, and laughing while sharing stories. The room smelled like fresh bread and hope. An older woman named Ruth greeted her with a warm smile. "Welcome, sweetheart. Ready to make a difference?" Mia nodded nervously. Her first task was to pack grocery bags with rice, beans, canned vegetables, and fruit. At first, it felt like a normal task, something anyone could do. But then she saw the line forming outside. Dozens of families, young children, and seniors were waiting patiently, holding empty bags, some wearing worn-out coats and tired eyes. That's when something shifted inside her. Later that morning, a little boy came in with his mother. He looked shy, but his eyes lit up when Mia handed him a bag with peanut butter and a box of cereal. He whispered, "Thank you," then ran to show his mom. That simple thank you hit Mia harder than any word ever had. By the end of the day, her arms were sore, but her heart was full. She looked around the room, at the smiles, the teamwork, the kindness, and thought, this is what community feels like. On her way home, she didn't just feel proud. She felt connected, to people she never met before, to something bigger than herself. Mia kept coming back every Saturday after that. Because sometimes, the most meaningful moments in life don't come from what we take, but from what we give. A few months had passed since Mia first stepped into the food bank. What started as a one-time volunteer shift had become the highlight of her week. She now knew everyone by name: Ruth, who always brought homemade cookies for the team; Jamal, a high school student who made everyone laugh while lifting the heaviest boxes; and Mrs. D, a retired teacher who sorted donations with the same care she once gave to grading papers. But it was one person Mia couldn't stop thinking about: the little boy with the shy smile. His name was Eli. He and his mother, Rosa, came every other Saturday. Rosa always thanked the volunteers quietly, her eyes a mix of exhaustion and grace. Mia often packed an extra treat in Eli's bag, a small box of raisins or a granola bar, just to see his face light up again. One day, Mia was helping organize the fresh produce when she saw Rosa standing at the doorway, holding a brown envelope. "I wanted to give this to you," Rosa said softly. Inside was a simple drawing. Eli had used crayon to draw Mia standing next to him, both of them smiling under a sign that said, "Thank you." Mia's eyes filled with tears. She hugged the paper to her chest. That night, she hung the drawing above her desk. The food bank was no longer just a place to volunteer. It had become a second home, a place of stories, silent strength, and small miracles. One evening, Ruth pulled Mia aside. "You know, we could really use your help organizing next month's community dinner. You've got the heart for it." Mia hesitated. "I've never led anything like that before." Ruth smiled. "None of us had. We just decided to start. That's how change begins." So Mia said yes. She learned how to plan a meal for 100 people, how to ask local stores for donations, and how to lead a team. The community dinner was full of laughter, music, and warm food served with love. That night, as people danced and children played, Mia looked around and felt something powerful. She wasn't just helping others anymore. She had discovered her purpose. After the success of the community dinner, something inside Mia changed. She started seeing the world differently. At school, when her classmates complained about the cafeteria food, Mia thought about families who had to choose between groceries and rent. When she walked past the unused vending machines in the hallway, she thought about how just one granola bar could make a difference in someone's day. One afternoon, her teacher, Mr. Landon, asked the class to choose a topic for their semester project. Most students picked typical ideas: science fair experiments, art portfolios, or business plans. But Mia raised her hand. "I want to create a volunteer club," she said, her voice steady. "A group that collects food, raises awareness, and encourages students to give back to our community." The classroom went quiet. Then Mr. Landon smiled. "That's bold. And it sounds like something this school needs." The club started with only 5 students. They called themselves Hands of Hope. Every Friday, they stayed after school to collect food donations, write thank you cards for volunteers, and even create simple care kits with soap, socks, and snacks for people in need. At first, some people didn't take them seriously. "You're just kids," someone said. But Mia remembered what Ruth once told her: "None of us had experience. We just decided to start." Soon, more students joined. A local bakery began donating bread every week. The principal gave them permission to hold a food drive in the school gym. What began as a one-day visit to a food bank had now grown into a movement. One morning, Mia received an envelope in her locker. Inside was a handwritten note. "Thank you for showing us that we don't need to be perfect to make a difference. We just need to care. You inspired me to volunteer too." A friend. Mia stood still, holding the note in both hands. She realized that true change doesn't always come from big speeches or famous names. Sometimes it starts with one small act. One bag of rice, one drawing, one moment of courage. And a heart that refuses to stay silent. It was the last week of senior year. The school gym was filled with chairs, decorations, and excitement. Students wore caps and gowns, families took pictures, and the air buzzed with the feeling of new beginnings. Mia stood backstage, holding a small note card in her trembling hands. She had been chosen to give the graduation speech, not because of her grades or popularity, but because of the difference she made. The curtain opened. Applause filled the room. She walked slowly to the microphone and took a deep breath. Then she began.
"A year ago, I thought volunteering at the food bank was just a one-time thing. I thought it would be something small, just a way to help others. But I was wrong. It helped me too. I met people who taught me what strength looks like. I saw how kindness can feed more than hunger. It can feed hope. And I realized something. You don't need to be rich, loud, or famous to make a difference. You just need to care. And you need to show up. We live in a world that often tells us we're not enough, not smart enough, not fast enough, not strong enough. But today, I want you to remember this. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to be present. So whatever you choose to do after today, whether you're going to college, getting a job, or still figuring things out, please don't wait to make an impact. Start now, even if it's just with one act of kindness, one bag of food, one moment of empathy. That's how change begins.
The gym was silent. Then, a wave of clapping rose from the front row and spread like fire. Students stood. Teachers wiped their eyes. Even the principal smiled with pride. After the ceremony, people came up to Mia, some she barely knew. "You inspired me. I want to volunteer too." "My little sister said she wants to start her own club now." Later that evening, Mia walked home, barefoot and holding her heels in one hand. Her gown blew softly in the breeze. She paused outside the food bank, the place where it all began. She looked up at the sky and whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." And it was. Because some jobs fill your pocket, but others, they fill your heart and light the way for others to follow. 5 years had passed. Mia was no longer the high school girl who nervously stepped into the food bank on a cold Saturday morning. She was now a college graduate, standing at the door of that same food bank, this time not as a volunteer, but as the new director. Ruth had retired and asked Mia to take her place. "You were always meant to lead," Ruth said, hugging her goodbye. The food bank looked different now. There was a children's corner with books and toys, a small community garden out back, a new program that offered job resources and English classes. But the heart of it, the warmth, the kindness, was still the same. And so was Eli. Now in middle school, he stopped by every Friday to help organize the snack shelf. He had grown taller, and he talked more. One afternoon, he asked Mia, "Do you think I could start a volunteer club at my school too?" Mia smiled. "I don't think. I know you can." The next week, she was invited to speak at his school assembly. As Mia stood in front of a new generation of students, she shared her story, the same one that had once begun with a simple act of kindness and a bag of rice. She looked out at the rows of young faces and said, "I used to think small actions didn't matter. But now I know, every person you help, every moment you choose kindness, every time you show up, it adds up. You never know how your small act could become someone else's turning point." At the end of her speech, the students clapped, and several raised their hands to ask, "How can we help?" Mia's heart swelled. The little spark she had lit years ago was now burning bright in others. And as she walked back to the food bank that evening, the sun setting behind her, she felt at peace. The journey that started with one choice had become something much bigger. It had become a legacy. Because when we give with heart, the story never really ends. It simply continues in the hands of those we've inspired.
Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new in English. Remember, small acts of kindness can make a big difference, just like Mia's story. If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with a friend who's also learning English. I'll see you next time with another story to help you practice listening and feel inspired. Take care and keep learning.